Welcome to the IT Collab, the podcast where the realms of community and collaboration intersect to revolutionize the delivery of IT managed services. I'm your host, Brandon Barnes. Whether you are an experienced IT professional seeking to expand your skill set or a visionary business leader in search of innovative solutions, we have you covered. Our experienced guests, comprising of industry veterans and thought leaders, will offer invaluable perspectives and insights to guide you through the dynamic landscape of IT. So, let us embark on this thrilling journey together. Let's go. All right, we're live. So today we have with us Kris Jensen. Kris with a K.
That's correct.
All right,
that's
perfect.
I
said it right.
Kris with a K.
All right, Kris, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do?
So I am a fractional technology leader. So CIO is the title that I identify with is Chief Information Officer. And fractional is a concept that some people get, some don't. But the idea with fractional is you come into organizations and instead of 5 days a week with a company, you may do a day a week. You might be 2 days a week. You might be in an advisor role, just doing it for a couple of hours a week. But providing the same enterprise level of technology leadership that a company would have if they had a full-time CIO.
Okay. So would you also consider that to be like a CTO?
The difference of CIO versus CTO, which is a good question, Brandon, is CTO typically is dealing with forward-facing applications, something that like a SaaS application, something that they're selling to
a specific technology,
yes.
like development work often.
Correct, development work versus
for us novice people, Kris.
Yeah, but no, it's a good question because some people ask what the difference is, and I've had the title in previous job of CTO. But it was really a chief information officer role. But they'd already had a CIO and a chief investment officer, so they gave me a different title.
Yeah. And I think in our space, there's a lot of CTOs that are more the lead technical nerd at an MSP or a consulting firm. But yes, I think generally in larger business, CTO tends to be tied to development work.
Yeah, it does. And so, the nuance of that is one's forward-facing, as in an MSP, it's forward-facing the technology that you're doing. In my particular case, it's more back office. It's more to help the organization from a technology perspective, improve process, improve systems, improve access to data.
So, Kris, just to let you know, I have to play dumb just to help everyone else out. So that's my job around here. That's what Nathan and I established. So I'm going to ask a lot of dumb questions, okay? But
he's really good at it.
I'm really good at this. So what I'd like to ask, in what cases would you have a company hire someone such as yourself?
So typically, when I say, and as you know, there's no typical situations, but I'll use typical in this case, is organizations that see the need for technology improvements for scale and growth, turnaround situations, or situations where they think that technology can be an enabler in their profitability. And so to make them better than their competitor, they realize that technology could play a huge role in that. Those are the companies that typically seek out fractional leadership.
Okay. So sometimes fractional is a great one, right? I like to use I think the fractional is a new term for me. But like
maybe
I've heard a lot of
VCIO?
Well, yeah, the virtual one. You call it virtual CIO, virtual CIO. So those ones I've heard a lot too. Or, so I like the fractional. Fractional seems to be the new hot word that I hear more often.
Well, yeah, it's over-abused.
It is, right?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be everybody in the gig.
It sounds prettier than virtual.
Well,
because then it sounds like when you hear virtual, I'm like, oh, well, they just like call in every once in a while.
Well, and that is, I think, would say the nuance of both you and Nathan come from the managed services environment, and in that particular case, a virtual CIO is different. And so they play, in some cases, not in every case, a different role. And they're not embedded in the organization on a daily or weekly basis. They don't sit in board meetings for the most part. They don't sit in executive meetings.
But fractional does.
The idea is that fractional does that.
Yeah,
so they
absolutely.
play the same role that a full-time CIO would play, but they just do it for less hours. And ultimately, it's an economic thing. So if you take say lower middle market or middle market, the idea behind that is that they cannot afford I'll just use a number, 300,000, burden all in individual. That's just an overhead that they cannot absorb. And so how do they accomplish the goal that they need without absorbing this huge salary? And fractionally is a way to do it.
So for instance, right, smaller company, mid-market, small company where you can't afford a full entire, fractional CIO. It's a great time to hire the fractional CIO.
That's right.
So you're saving cost. I hear this a lot. I want to recommend to certain clients that they probably shouldn't employ a fractional CT or CIO, and we do. Our company offers, development services, so that becomes more of the CTO at times.
That's right.
But sitting on in those moments, I highly recommend it because sometimes they can't translate what they want. So I want to be like, please just hire someone to help you translate what you want. Because otherwise you're feeling, I'm like, you guys don't even know what you want. Like, how can I really truly help you if you don't even envision what you want at the end of the day?
No, and that's you're spot on. Is a lot of organizations they see what their competitors are doing, they see what they could do in the marketplace, but they don't know how to translate that. They don't know how to what tech do you bring in, and when I say tech, it could be software, it could be hardware, it could be artificial intelligence,
vendors,
vendors, different vendors.
Can't stand those vendors.
Slight tangent here, but. I had another customer. They got sold by basically their CIO is a vendor called Sophos right now, and I'm like, so they told you that we're anyway. Long story short,
vendors making decisions about products.
Wow, thanks. What is it they're telling you that's not happening?
A good example is Nathan had a company he was working with. It was a startup. I won't name the name of the company, Nathan, but you remember who it is. And the CEO of that company asked Nathan, "Hey, I want you to come in and help develop board decks." And Nathan was coming in as a senior level IT person on an MSP side, but they wanted him to do all this business stuff. And Nathan calls me up and says, "Hey, Kris, that's not my forte. You need to come into this company and play a role." Now, that company didn't choose to do it. They didn't see the vision. They didn't see
value.
The value. Yeah.
I feel like there's also a size scenario that happens here. Because even though it's fractional, it's still there's a cost. But I think there's also a organizational maturity. I think companies there's a revenue target number here as well, but under 150 seats or so, they don't tend to have formalized boards. They're not having board meetings in the same way, right? So that they maybe they want that advisory work, but they don't necessarily see the CIO level where you hit a certain size and all of a sudden there's investors, there's a real board, those C-level titles come with responsibility.
Correct.
And that's where I think this fits a lot better.
No, and it's a good distinction, Nathan, because say a founder-led company, they don't need to have a board. They don't need to even have a formal audit. So so whatever data or whatever financial systems, they don't have to report that to any investors, or they may not have to. Or if they have investors, they're not putting them to the same level of scrutiny. It's when you start to formalize it, private equity comes in, purchases it, or you have a group of investors. They want a formalized audit, and they want the data to know that whatever's in those financial reports is actually accurate, and so it's an audited results. And so at that point, everything gets formalized at that point, and sophistication comes into play.
Could you give me like a good scenario into which you've helped companies overcome some obstacles? Or at least one.
No, yes. So a situation that I came into is I had a construction company. This was several years ago, and they had fired the director of IT, and in the process, all of the IT team left.
Genius, yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, well, they had quit because they didn't like the director of IT, but the company was too slow to fire the director, and so in the process, they lost everybody.
Right.
And so a CFO calls me up and says, "Hey, Kris, I'm in a world of hurt. I don't have any technology leadership. I actually don't have any IT staff. I've got zero. They had all defected." And so, can you come in and help me? Fortunately, I had just left an organization, and I was on the bench, and I said, sure, let's come in and tackle this. I don't know what the heck I was thinking, but I took it on. And that was a particular challenge because I didn't have a roadmap. Matter of fact, the story is I looked over in the corner and there was $150 sand sitting in the corner that they purchased a year before and had never implemented.
150K.
Wait.
I'm sorry, 150K. Yes.
Yeah, I had to roll back to that. 150K sand.
Sand, yeah.
That's
Which is peanuts today, but this was 10 years ago, and so in today's
still
dollars,
that's still pretty dang expensive.
yeah, it's still expensive, but it had not been implemented, and so. So the challenge of that, giving you the Reader's Digest version, was to come in, assess what the initial needs were, having a relationship with an MSP who could come in immediately and provide me help desk, provide me tier 1, tier 2 support, and we were off to the races. Within a week, we at least had put a Band-Aid on the bleeding. Now that wasn't the path forward, but at least there was something in place to start to build a structure for. Now, the end of it was they'd had an ERP that had not been upgraded in years. The SAN got implemented, virtualization got implemented that wasn't there. The data center was stabilized, but that was that took a year and a half to do.
Right. Because would you say that you played a part in ensuring they knew where the problem was?
Ask the question again, Brennan.
Are you the one that found out that the director of IT was the problem?
No, they had discovered
by
that
that
director of IT was the problem. But they were just, Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, they knew that they had a problem, but they just said it was too painful to deal with it. And at the end of the day, it was not too painful. They should have dealt with it far sooner because then a plan could have been put in place. They wouldn't have been found flat-footed.
I feel like that's a layer that a lot of companies also don't see, is we have this idea that good technical people become good managers, become good leaders. And management and leadership are not always components that good technical people have.
Right.
And it's no knock on them. They've got brains that work in different ways. And I think, even sometimes IT, like really good IT directors make very poor IT executives.
Right.
Because they can be very pragmatic and tactical, but they don't know how to think or plan or communicate strategically.
No, and that's spot on, Nathan. Thank you for that segue. I couldn't have teed that up any better than you did. So, and that is really the difference in a situation. Is a lot of companies say, as a matter of fact, I've heard it over and over again. Well, I can get an IT director for X number of dollars.
Oh my God!
And
sorry, I've heard it too.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm just kind of like let me hire the all-in-one guy.
Yeah.
That's going to do it all. He's going to tell me how to do everything. Yep. He's going to direct all the traffic. He's going to do all the work, and then
and Brandon, you're spot on. And so I see it frequently. Is this is a lower cost individual? They can take me from soup to nuts. And then what happens is the business, when I say the business, the owners of the business really have no idea what IT's doing because this IT director or IT manager, and I'm not disparaging anybody in that role. There's some really good ones.
I am.
Okay. There's some really good, talented people in that space, but they think tactically. And so they think, nuts and bolts of how I do what I do.
They're problem solvers.
That's right.
But sometimes they solve too many problems and don't see the big picture as well.
Well, what's the saying? When somebody sees that, when they have a hammer and every problem's a nail.
Right.
And so, a lot of people don't like that analogy, but it's a true analogy. They're saying, I can't tell you how many times I've walked in a room with IT directors who report to me, and tactically they're really good, but they're just every problem's solved with this piece of software. And it's like, well, what does that do for the business?
Right.
So tell me how the business is going to drive revenue from what we're doing.
Right. And the budget just keeps growing because you keep buying point solutions for every problem.
Yep.
But long term, it's just that hockey stick is going the wrong direction.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The hockey stick on costs is going up, but it doesn't match the situation of the business. And then you have the transverse of that, or the converse of it, where it's going up in a hockey stick, but revenue's not going up in the hockey stick. So then the business comes in and says, I need this whole thing slashed in half, and you can't adapt to it because you're not prepared for it. So
yeah.
Would you say that there is a problem, especially when you're running these situations where most companies you probably work with just have a director of IT, right? This think or tactically versus strategically.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that, like when you come in with your services and you offer to go strategic, that you're kind of that translator from the C-level to the IT director at times? Or what gap would you say that you fill?
Well,
and I'm saying this as a dummy here, right? Just trying to play it out.
Yeah, no.
Because I think there's a lot of companies that could benefit from what you're saying today, and realizing like I think that a lot of times the translation is massively important.
Well, and the translation is important because what's the difference? What does this individual play and help? What's the differentiation? And we can talk about strategy, and we can talk about enterprise and roadmaps. But where does it solve business problems? It ultimately, and I'll digress on the question just for a minute, and I'll get there. So the 5 biggest challenges that businesses have that are in that middle market trying to scale and grow, 2 of the 5 technology solutions can solve. One of them is they whatever solutions are in place from a scalability, like say their ERP, they're using QuickBooks. QuickBooks can't scale and grow, so they need a better ERP. The other one is access to data. They're collecting all of this data, but what do they do with that data to drive business decisions? It's one thing to collect it, not. So the differentiation.
You can swim in their data lake. It's really great swimming.
Yeah, it went, and you hear about I can go to Snowflake and all these.
You get to make some new clothes with fabric.
Exactly.
You like that analogy? Was that good?
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah. So from a business owner, they don't realize that the idea being is they know there's a pain.
Well, the director probably doesn't realize it either sometimes. Right?
No, you're right. They don't, because they're tactically trying to keep the lights on, keep things functioning for it. So for a business owner, the differentiation is where they finally, the lights come on of saying, I'm spending all of this money on technology. What am I getting out of it? Is there a benefit that I'm getting out of this spend? And the answer generally is no. You don't have an alignment of costs versus outcomes. And so for a business owner, if they were sitting in their, listening to this podcast, which we do hope they're doing, is that the benefit to them is you have somebody come in and look at it differently. They look at it from an enterprise standpoint, and they look at it differently than how they've ever looked at it before. And so, and the idea isn't just go spend more money. The idea is to align what you're spending to a better outcome.
So here's another interesting piece of thought. I have a lot of thoughts going through my head as you're talking, so I really appreciate you being patient with me here. But so when you're I think one thing, I want to give some props to directors of IT, so don't get me wrong, I'm not against them at all.
Same here.
But what I think that sometimes they might not see as the value of is, especially being in the managed services realm like us, is that we've seen a lot of different companies and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So as a fractional CIO, would you say that's kind of the same, where you get to see all these different types of companies where you're kind of open and you see these other solutions that could help people versus sometimes the pigeonhole that these companies create for themselves?
Yeah, let me put it in a phrase, because I think this is where you're going, Brandon, is I know what good looks like. And so because I know what good looks like, I can help a company get to good. And because I've worked in so many different organizations from the enterprise level, I've worked with MSPs, I've worked with directors of IT, IT managers, and so I know what for an organization, because I come from a consulting background. That's the other thing, is I've worked with literally hundreds of companies, and so I have a good idea what looks good and what looks bad.
I think that's exactly what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm trying to show value here too, right? Like why, coming from a director, so coming from a IT director spot, I've also seen where they're horrible salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by a salesperson is that they can't sell what is needed to help the IT department strive.
Yeah.
And I value CIO, or fractional CIO in that sense, or other companies that can come in and help them sell and show value.
Sell to leadership in their own company.
I mean, a cost breakdown. I was down in a trucking company, a very big trucking company down in Texas, right? And I'm sitting there. I don't know if I told you this story. I'm sitting there watching this lady. She shows up. She has a burrito. She has her coffee. Has her computer starting up, and she's like walking around. It took a half an hour, right, before this computer to start up. And these are like people that are helping the truckers get to where they need to go. And I did the math. Like, how much does this lady get paid? they does some math, and I was like, okay, so take a half an hour on the front end of every morning that this person has to take, divided by, and did the math to show them all these people and how slow the computers are. That company, he went to his boss with that math equation, and they had all the computers within, 2 months.
Yep.
And so it's just a matter of showing and selling that value.
Yeah.
But I think that's where a lot of, I see that happening in most companies, where they just don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I've got an interesting story. So this was early in my career when I was, it was in a consulting gig, and I was really functioning as this company's IT director. So essentially, they'd outsourced the IT director role.
Yeah.
And so I sat in an executive meeting with the CEO, the COO, and the CFO, and we were trying to essentially sell them on how they needed to upgrade the hardware. So I come in with all the data and the facts, and the facts were technical facts. And the CEO looks at me and says, "I'm not doing it, and I'm not buying this story." And frankly, I lost it. I'm like, dude, I spent hours on charts and graphs and costs, and he goes, yeah, and I became a little bit combative. It's like, this is important. Why would you shut this down? And fortunately, my manager was sitting in the room with me and took over. And what he showed me is how a CIO really needs to operate. And so he took my data and graphs and put it into a language the business could understand.
Yeah.
I was giving him a technical response,
right.
and he gave a business response.
Yep.
And for me, that was lights on. I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I have to do. I was proposing. To me, it was clear, but to the business, it was not.
This is how we sell MSP services.
Yeah.
Anybody can fix my computer. They don't care. If you can get to what business problem am I solving by being your IT provider in 2 or 3 months, they go, well, man, if you could make my person with the slow computer and a burrito log in faster and be more efficient,
So
like that was an outcome. You didn't have to talk about the technology or the SSDs in that machine.
no,
it was simple.
I'll circle on pain. I will circle on pain because that's the problem that you're solving. I can sit there and show all the bells and whistles of everything we offer, and they don't give a dang.
Yep.
Right? But if I can sit there and go, but I'm solving my problem by having a person at your site 2 days a week, and I'm getting to your problems faster. I'm doing, and I have dashboards, and I have all these, and then they go, oh, and then it depends on their pain, right? Everyone has a different pain,
but it's learning how to listen for and sell to that pain.
Yeah.
That's strategic, though.
Yeah, well, it is strategic, and if you think about it, the stories that we tell to management, CEOs, to the board, it has to be a story. It has to be a compelling story. You can come up with a business case, financially, that it does everything, but if it doesn't resonate with them, if it's not a story that they can understand, and it doesn't kind of hit in their heart, they're going to say no, thank you. And that's the key difference. That's the nuance that executive level leaders learn along the way. They don't. Some people are blessed with it. I wasn't that guy. I had to learn it, but I did learn it.
Yeah.
Okay. From a fractional CIO perspective, how important is security?
I can't. I stammer. I stammer not because I don't know the answer.
It's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming because I'll give you a scenario. So a company that I was doing some work with recently, it had a huge miss during the due diligence process. And during that due diligence process, they completely under budgeted what it was going to take to secure the environment and the solutions that were in place. It was a $500,000 miss. And so because it was a particular company, it had compliance requirements. They had an outside party come in and do a security assessment. They had done 2 of them. And in both of those security assessments, they got some things done, but not other things done. And so when I'm looking at it as a CIO, I'm like, oh my gosh, you got single points of failure, you got all of these security things that are in place. And Nathan knows, because Nathan is somewhat involved in this. And so when we looked at it, it was one of those things where, as an IT leader, it kept me up at night. It's one of those things where I didn't sleep because of that. If anything happens here, the company's at risk, I'm at risk. And when I say at risk, potentially legally, because of these gaps were not covered. And so, and security's become such a difficult thing. Everybody's got a solution. Everybody's got a Band-Aid that they can stick on the problem. They've got this solution, that solution, this logging solution. And so the challenge with it for IT executives is weeding through all of this to get to a ultimate solution that will work for companies.
Have you had difficulties showing executives why it's important?
Yeah, in this particular case, this is a good example. We came and said, okay, you've got. Matter of fact, I sat in with the board, the security side of the board, the compliance side of the board, and outlined the solution to them. And when we were done, they got it. They understood it. But it came down to cost. They're like, man, that's a $500,000. That,
Well, yeah, until they take you for like a mill.
well, and it was the idea. Well, can we do this in phases? The answer is yes, you can do it in phases.
You have to.
But yeah, and you do. But the idea is well, how much risk can we?
Yeah.
Essentially, they asked the question came down to how much risk do you recommend we actually absorb, versus cost. Now that's a tough. That's a
great
tough
question,
call,
though.
because do you spend $100,000 instead of $200,000 on
So
the
they asked how much
solution?
you could absorb?
Yeah, how much risk can the organization absorb? Instead of putting a solution.
It's a great question. You're taking the question and turning it into a better question of like, how much risk can we abide by with for how long?
That's right.
It's a good way to
Pay the
pay the
insurance
piper.
money,
Yeah, and you hate to be chicken little. And as you don't know when somebody's going
hard
to
not.
Yeah.
And I almost want to ask that company, what's the price of your reputation? What is the price of your reputation at that point?
Yeah, and that was an answer that couldn't be given. Is what is the cost of a reputation? So, in that particular case, the recommendation to the company is to do a business impact analysis. Go line by line, determine how much how much downtime can you suffer before you lose enough money that it's incomprehensible to not do something.
The pragmatic side of that becomes a real challenge, though, because the nerds want to go buy the whiz-bang
That's right.
security solution.
Yeah.
But you need to have that pragmatic approach to say exactly what you're doing. Business impact analysis, say, yeah, we can go buy the best security software in the world, but if we're not backing stuff up or we don't have MFA in critical spots, it's not spending money on software. That's just due diligence and attention to detail. But it makes a world of difference, right? And so it's finding the way to balance out all the layers there and find a way to get to those pragmatic steps.
That's right.
And then it's also hard, in the many of these scenarios we keep walking into, because I'm seeing them in other places, these mid-market companies are like, well, I'm already spending $60,000 a year on security solutions, and now you're telling me that they're not cutting it. I'm on a 3-year contract. Yeah. Now what? and you're stuck because these vendors are not cheap, and they're good at making money.
Yeah.
Oh, the security guys?
Oh yeah, the security vendors are crazy.
Yeah, I was looking. I was on a call earlier today, and 5 different security solutions, all kind of doing the same thing. And as a business, I'm thinking, how do you decide which one of these it solves your problem?
There's no golden bullet.
No, there is not.
There's no one size. There's no one size that fits all.
Right.
And I can't implore enough to people that I tell my customers is like, I'm just gonna warn you. As soon as I tell you this happens, you're cursed. Because as soon as I've done it to like 3 companies where I say that, and all of a sudden within weeks they're like, you did it. I'm like, I swear to you, I did not. I was like, but it just so happens when I try and bring it up, I say the right things, and I'm like, hey, security's layers, security's important, and a lot of times they don't care until it happens to them.
Yep. And you're spot on. And another thing I wanted to say here is a lot of times business say, well, IT owns security, and my response is no, everybody owns security.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a problem that everybody needs to own and everybody needs to face up to.
How important is training your employees to this solution?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the leading question. I appreciate the softball.
Don't lead the witness.
I appreciate the softball question. They have to know the solution well. So the answer is they have to be well trained. They have to know it well. Yeah. Another thought that I had that kind of it doesn't really dovetail this, but I'm going to do it anyway. This concept used to be in technology, one throat to choke, and I'm very concerned about a one throat to choke in a security solution. You can't have the fox watching the hen house. So you can train your individuals on the solutions that probably are closest to them. What sits on the endpoints. what sits on the on your firewall, what application layer. But I truly believe that any security solution needs to be outsourced to a managed SOC of some sort, where somebody else is looking at the data, has the tools to evaluate the data independent of what you're seeing internally.
Agreed. But I think having layers of tools in place too to monitor,
Yes.
automation, right? So something that's massively important to me, where you're doing your conditional access, you have different layers of security in there that say, hey, if this, then do that. And then the SOC, it can warn the SOC, right? So it's automated before the SOC even gets to it.
Yeah,
So.
and that's the challenge, Brandon. Is you think of roofing tiles. Roofing tiles on a house are layered.
Yeah.
You start and you layer down. I just had hail damage done to mine, repaired last year. And watching these guys and how important it was, these different layers to keep the water from coming through. And so it is a layered solution, which means the training is that much more complex.
It's a good analogy.
It is a good one because you've got that base layer that is actually keeping the water out.
That's
And
right.
the tiles are to protect the base layer. It's a
right.
brilliant analogy, actually.
That's a good one.
I won't give credit to the source who gave it to me, but they work for KPMG. So
It's fair enough. I like it. What do you do for fun?
man, there's not enough fun in my life. No, the biggest thing is I'm a big outdoor guy. You come to Colorado, and if you're not an outdoor guy, I don't know why you live here. So get on my bike a lot, get out, hike a lot, ski. Being outdoors. Matter of fact, I crave to be in the mountains.
I know. The traffic is awful, though.
You were correct, and that's one reason why I don't ski in Colorado, is because I just cannot take the drive up and back.
Just even, you come home on a Sunday down I-70.
I-70,
Man, killing me.
But just everything about the outdoors. Last night I was finished work. It was about 8 o'clock, and it just needed to get a break. And just to, Colorado offers these open spaces where you can just go walk and just feel like you're in nature. And I just have never seen that before, and wherever I've lived, it's fantastic.
I love it. Yeah, we're natives, right?
We are.
Yeah.
You and I are.
Yeah,
You're not.
I'm not a
about you.
native. No. But so because the natives, there is a judgment. I grew up in southeastern Idaho, so I grew up in the mountains. So I came here. Even though I lived in California for a number of years, I'm an Idahoan by from heart.
Yeah, there's plenty of outdoors up there.
Yeah, tons of outdoors. But so I feel a kinship. Let's just say that.
No judgment whatsoever.
Just take your politics and leave, right?
I honestly don't even say anything. People always make fun of us for being, like, oh, natives. Oh, okay, sure. I just came back from Italy.
Oh.
And we had a long story about the flights, but we actually ended up spending a little bit of time in Iceland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Nice and brisk, 55 degrees.
Oh, man.
But volcano was going off. I'm like, take me there.
Right.
They wouldn't take me.
I
wouldn't
bet they
take me,
wouldn't.
yeah.
Would they even let you off the plane? That's the question.
No, we actually had a long, we ended up there twice, and we didn't plan on it, but we ended up staying over 2 days, and had a beautiful hotel up there, and I was trying to walk around up there until my wife was like, I'm freezing, we didn't pack for this.
Yeah, when it's intentional, it's great. If the flight was mid-flight and portion of the wing fell off and you had to land an emergency, that's what I was.
Yeah, no, that'd be bad.
Iceland is definitely not Mediterranean temperate.
No, Italy was way different. Rome was way different animal. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
No,
Sure.
love it. Love Europe. I've spent a lot of time over there for work. So
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you coming on today. We can try and wrap it up around a half an hour, otherwise people stop listening to us.
I don't blame him.
Just
I'd
kidding.
stop listening as well. So
Honestly, thank you so much for coming on, and we'd love to have you back sometime.
no, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity and great questions, great comments, and I appreciated the jovial nature of the room. So
Awesome. Maybe we'll get it a little cooler next time.
yeah, that would be nice.
Keep it up. All right. You guys have a great time. For the rest of you, don't forget to do all the things and like and subscribe to our channel. Appreciate it.